Good evening, everyone. I'll begin by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadandi and Kaniang people of the Noongar Nation, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We'll declare this meeting open at 3 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council Policy EMCP2, and members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. Whilst every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud noises may be picked up in the recording, which we all welcome this meeting. In attendance, we have Councillor John Bailey, Deputy President Alex Purick, Councillor Tyler Hall, Councillor Amanda McNabb will be attending via live stream. Do we have Councillor McNabb? And Councillor Anita Lindeman and Councillor Grant Patrick. Not there? Okay. We'll let you know when Councillor McNabb is joining us. Staff present are our CEO, Nick O'Connor, Director of Operations, Ross Marshall, Director of Finance and Community, to my right is Mr. Colin Young, and in the gallery we have Manager Financial Services, Meta Hazeldine, and Manager of Development Services, Michelle Dennis, and Principal Planner, Cecilia Muller. And to my left, we have Executive Manager Corporate, Lauren Clifford, and Administration Officer Corporate Services, Samantha Farquhar. We welcome everybody attending in the gallery, everyone who's participating via live stream, and we especially welcome the Brookhampton bell ringers. Now, at the start of each meeting, a council resolution is required to suspend clause 8.2, members to rise. Would councillors like to move motion to suspend 8.2? Councillor Lindeman, seconded by Alex Purick. Councillor Purick, sorry. All in favour? And that's carried. Tonight we have no apologies. At 2.2, we have no approved leave of absences. At 2.3, do councillors have any applications for leave of absence? At item 3, announcements from the presiding member, from myself. I think I might. Yeah. Yeah. I think at this point we will.
Do your declaration of interest and then bring the other matter forward, maybe.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move to item 4, councillors, declarations of interest. Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995 states that care should be taken by all councillors, committee members and staff to ensure that a financial or impartiality interest is declared and that they refrain from voting on any matter which is considered to come within the ambit of the Act. Do councillors have any declarations for this evening? And we welcome Councillor McNabb. Thank you.
Hi.
Okay. Now, councillors, I'd like to move a motion to move the order of business, a procedural motion. We'd like to do the bell ringers first, their deputation, and we'll keep all the other deputations in order, but we'll move you forward. So we have to get a second. Or?
I was just going to say, you might want to just get Councillor McNabb now that she's participating to make a statement saying that she's going to...
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Good thinking. Councillor McNabb, before we do that motion, the procedural motion, would you like to read out your declaration?
I can do that. Pursuant to section 14CA5 of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, I, Councillor McNabb, declare that I am situated in a location where I can maintain confidentiality throughout the duration of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor McNabb. And now we move the procedural motion to change the order of business. Would someone like to second that? Deputy President Purick, and all in favour? Carried. Right. Now, the Brookhampton Bell Ringers, I first came across you when my parents were living in Turia Lodge about 7 years ago. So, and then I've seen you a couple of times since then at Christmas carols, and I believe you're playing at the Christmas carols this Saturday, this Saturday. I have got that in my announcements later. So I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
Okay, Peter speaking. Peter Clifford. Good afternoon, Council. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great deal of pleasure to be here entertaining you this afternoon. We are the Brookhampton Bell Ringers. These have been in operation since 1904, which is quite some considerable time. And these are the original bells. They were brought to Brookhampton by the chaplain Frank Young in 1904. And they have been refurbished once, but apart from that, they're still the original bells. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that the Brookhampton Hall has recently been renovated and reclad, and the contribution from the Donnybrook Shire has been extremely generous and has been much appreciated by all the residents of Brookhampton, including the Brookhampton Bell Ringers. So we thank you very, very much to the councillors for the work that they've done at the Brookhampton Hall and the assistance they've given the Brookhampton Hall Committee. Secondly, I'd like to mention the fact that we appreciate the fact that we are actually playing in what used to be a church. There's nothing better than playing these bells in a lovely acoustic, and this is an extremely good acoustic hall. We have played once here before, I think, at someone's funeral, when it was a church. But thank you very, very much for allowing us to entertain you. There was one other thing. Merry Christmas. I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. Everybody, all the councillors and all the people here from the public, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year. And we will start our proceedings today with a song which was played as the ships left the coast of England. It's the Bell of St Mary's. And after the first walk, sorry. said previously, these bells are very old. They are actually over 100 years old. We're not all over 100 years old. Some are creepy, right? Some of us are creepy, right? Is there an F there somewhere? There? No. Very important that we get the right bells. Our next song we're going to play for you is Silent Night. These are all old traditional Christmas carols. There was a bit of a clang in that was me. Yeah, I thought so. I couldn't blame anybody else, it was me. The next song, sorry. What do you the next song we'll play for you is Good King Wenceslas. This was playing. Twice, mate, twice, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
We don't mind if you'd like to sing along to it, you may do so. But, sometimes it's a little bit hard to pick the tune. Wish you a Merry Christmas. It's most important you get the right bells. There's an E. Okay, this is We Wish You a Merry Christmas. If you want to sing, please do. It's a little bit hard to pick the tune. This is it. Okay. Short but sweet. Yeah. This is top. 1, 2, 3 on the 3.
Thank you so much for that presentation. That was our first deputation of 4 tonight, so tough act to follow, everybody. Now, we're going to go back into the meeting. While the bell ringers are packing up, I'll just run some announcements. The first is an event being held in Balingup. The community Christmas markets will be held on the 19th of December from 4 p.m. at the Village Green. Santa will be dropping by in the fire truck at 6 p.m, followed by Christmas carols from the Balingup Choir at 6:30 p.m. The idea is to bring a picnic blanket and enjoy some fish and chips from the Mushroom Cafe and perhaps a cocktail from the Balingup Fruit Winery. The next event coming up is the Lions Club of Donnybrook, whom's The Lions Club of Donnybrook are warmly inviting the whole community to come together for carols by candlelight, to be held at the Donnybrook Amphitheatre from 5 p.m. on Saturday, the 20th of September. Pack your picnic rugs, gather your family and friends, and enjoy a beautiful summer evening filled with festive music and community spirit. This year's program features the Brookhampton Bellringers, the Bunbury of City Band, accompanied by talented Christmas singers and special guest performers who will bring your favourite carols to life. And finally, the holiday season is here, as we know from that deputation, and the Shire's adjusted operating hours have been published on our website, social media sites, and the December edition of the Preston Press. The Shire Administration Office, including the Works and Services and Library Services at Donnybrook and Balingup, will be closed from 12 p.m. on the 23rd of December 2025, reopening as normal from the week starting Monday, 5th of January. There's adjusted hours for the Donnybrook Recreation Centre, and you can find those. I won't read them all out because they do vary, but be sure to check that on the website or on our socials. And then finally, curbside collections and waste facilities are not affected by the Christmas break for both Donnybrook and Balingup. And also our waste facilities will continue to operate as normal. Moving into item 5, public question time. Are there any questions from the public gallery tonight? No? Well, I do have one that's been submitted prior, and it's from Mr. and Mrs. Abbott, Mal and Lisa Abbott of 36 Scafidi Place, who adjoin Lot 103 Irish Town Road, Donnybrook. Their question is regarding the development application in item 9.1.1 for application number P25041, workforce accommodation at Lot 3, 107 Irish Town Road in Donnybrook. Their question is, the Shire Officer's report has failed to respond to the specific point we raised in our comment submission form re non-compliance of the proposal with the planning scheme. Could the Shire please respond to the point which is restated below? The proposed workforce accommodation fits the definition of residential building as described in the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage Residential Design Codes. It states, a residential building is a building or proportion of a building, together with rooms and outbuildings, separate from such building but incidental thereto, such building being used or intended, adapted or designed to be used for the purpose of human habitation by temporarily by 2 or more persons, or permanently by 7 or more persons who do not comprise a single family, but does not include a hospital or sanatorium, a prison, a hotel or a motel, or a residential school. Within the Shire Scheme number 7 zoning table, a residential building is not permitted within a priority agricultural zone. The answer, the officer's response to that question, there is no land use definition for residential building within Local Planning Scheme Number 7, brackets LPS 7, as this use is defined under the Residential Design Codes of Western Australia, or RCodes. The RCodes provide the planning and design framework for residential development within residential zones under local planning schemes across Western Australia, and defined most dwelling types applicable to LPS 7. Under the model provision of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulation 2015, there is a specific land use definition for workforce accommodation, which directly corresponds with the nature of the proposed development. Accordingly, workforce accommodation is considered the most appropriate land use classification for the purposes of this application. It goes on to comment, as an extract of the model provisions, workforce accommodation means premises which may include modular or relocatable buildings used in A, primarily for the accommodation of workers engaged in construction, resource, agricultural or other industries on a temporary basis, and B, for any associated catering, sporting and recreation facilities for the occupants and authorised visitors. That's clause 38 amended. Although workforce accommodation is not listed in the zoning table, Table 1 of LPS 7, the deemed provisions provide a mechanism for the consideration of complex applications. A complex application is defined under the regulations as a development application for a use not listed in the relevant zoning table. With reference to the definition on page 121 of the state regulations, a complex application means A, an application for approval of development that is a use of land if the use is not specifically referred to in the zoning table for this scheme in respect of the zone in which the development is located, or B, an application of a kind identified elsewhere in this scheme or in a local planning policy as a complex application for development approval. End of extract. Workforce accommodation is a distinct land use under the model provisions, reflecting its specific purpose, management arrangements, and occupancy patterns. Accordingly, the proposal has been assessed as workforce accommodation rather than a residential building. A residential building is intended to function as part of the general housing stock and is occupied independently of employment. In contrast, the proposed development is classified as workforce accommodation as occupancy is directly associated with and restricted to employment. While there are no third-party appeal rights in Western Australia for planning decisions, should the submitter disagree with the Shire's interpretation of the scheme, it is open to them to refer the matter to the Minister for Planning for independent review. Thank you for your patience while I've read that out. Are there any further questions from the gallery? Okay, if there are no further questions, we can move through to Thank you, CEO. Just commenting there that this question and the response will be in the minutes of the meeting. Okay, moving on to item 6, presentations. This relates to 6.1 petitions. A petition has been received from Baling Upcycle on the 5th of November 2025, and it can be found in attachment 6.1.1 of the attachments. The petition respectfully requests that Council support the Baling Upcycle Playground project. Councillors, would you like to move the motion that Council acknowledge the receipt of the petition? Councillor Patrick, and seconded Councillor Bailey. Councillor Patrick, did you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Bailey? If no one is going to speak against the motion, we'll just consider that carried. The process from there is that petition will be included in the report for the matter to come before Council in February, I think.
It's February.
Yeah. Okay. Item 6.2, presentations. We have none tonight. Bringing us to item 6.3, deputations. Now, last week at the agenda briefing, Mr Simon Russo presented in relation to item 9.1.1 and Mr Gary Fitzgerald from TechOn Australia, am I pronouncing TechOn right? Yep, also presented. There are 3 further deputations in relation to item 9.1.1, application 25041, workforce accommodation at lot 103, 107 Irish Town Road in Donnybrook, and they will be heard in the item that they've been received from council, been received by council. And just before we go into it, I'd like to remind those presenting that we're in a tricky situation in that we're reintroducing commentary after the event. So this normally appears up in the front of the process. So we just need to be mindful that no new information can be brought into the deputation. And this is because the period for submitting objections has actually passed. So what we're going to do, if you can be very patient with us, if there's something that is new, or perhaps if there's a fact that needs to be corrected, we're going to work on post-it notes and just interrupt you if you don't mind, just to clarify any points. The main point is that you all feel like that you've been able to be heard, and I hope that is the outcome. Now, the first deputation received by council was from a lady, not to be confused with one of our employees here. I sent an email to the wrong person today. But yes, Mrs Talia O'Sullivan, and she'll be presenting in relation to item 9.1.1. If you'd like to come up to the microphone. And is that working?
Yeah. Can I invite Michelle to the bench?
Yes. And just before you present, Talia, I'll just...
It's pronounced Thalia.
Thalia.
It's phonetic.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
Could I ask before you start that that our principal planner and is Michelle coming too? No? Our principal planner, Miss Muller, if she's going to also come up and help us.
Okay. I don't know if you'll need help, but anyway.
Now, I understand you may be a little minute over,
I might be.
excluding interruptions
And
from
I've got
me.
a cold, so if I cough and die.
All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. So my name is Thalia O'Sullivan, and I'm here representing the Irishtown Heights community. This little multicultural community is very close-knit, and it seeks to have its voice heard, so I thank the councillors for their time. Our community is a mix of cultures. There are people who work as nurses, teachers, police officers, tradespeople, mums and dads, and we've got lots of children there. We love
Talia,
this-
we can't actually hear you, so I'm just going to get the Director of
stop the
Operations
clock.
to...
Oh, thank you. I don't want to trip over it either. Oh, we'll see. You'll let me know.
Yeah, just move up close to it, I think, yeah, if
Okay.
it's possible.
Straddle it. Oh, it's not good, is it? Okay, so look, I appreciate a hardworking person like Simon wanting to make money. We're all the same in that regard. And I acknowledge consultants need to do their best for their clients as well. And it's definitely a tough gig for council members. The Local Government Act 1985 and the Donnybrook Code of Conduct puts a lot on councillors. And one of the things they talk about in the Code of Conduct is to act lawfully, which means conforming to the law and making sure the decisions are lawful. Community place implicit trust in that you will do this for us. Often we're in a position where we have to trust what we're provided with to base our decisions upon is fair, true and accurate. But mistakes happen, and if something unlawful occurs as a consequence, we may not know until it's too late. In the case of this application, questions have arisen about whether or not there was consideration of the definitions in the LPS table as being reasonably determinative of describing the proposed application. It's important to take note of these concerns in order to prevent something that might be administratively incorrect and therefore unlawful from inadvertently occurring. I want to preface this by saying I've worked for around 20 years applying legislation as a senior regulation officer for state government and in similar roles in the federal government. I'm no stranger to reading and applying law and making lawful decisions. This was my trade for many, many years. And I'm not the only one in the list of objectors with knowledge in reading and applying legislation. The issue some of us has raised is that there appears to be a reliance on the applicant's reasons for seeking an unlisted definition rather than what we see as a transparent process where the existing definitions are shown to not be reasonably descriptive of the proposed building. In the Parliamentary Council's Office 2011, and I've been using it for that long, Guide on How to Read Legislation, it reminds us that legislation doesn't have words in it that are there for no purpose. The guide states legislation seldom uses and or because the result is unclear. The use of and between two parts of a sentence or subparagraph means both parts must have effect at the same time. It doesn't mean the part after the and can be disappeared or omitted or not lawfully considered as part of a lawful decision. A number of objections focus on the fact we believe that under the LPS 7 it appears the application should be deemed as being of a use where X applies on the zoning table, and this means the application is for a use that is not permitted in the scheme. The applicant's consultant proposed the application is for workforce accommodation, and as workforce accommodation is not specifically listed, in these circumstances, choosing 3.18.2 of LPS 7 apparently provides a clear statutory pathway for considering unlisted uses. 3.18.2 actually states, if a person proposes to carry out on land any use that is not specifically mentioned in the zoning table and cannot reasonably be determined as falling within the type, class or genus of activity of any other use category, then the local government may determine that the use is consistent with the objectives of that particular zone and is therefore permitted. Similarly, the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes regulations under section 17.4 of the zoning table states, the local government may, in respect of a use that is not specifically referred to in the zoning table and that cannot reasonably be determined as falling within a use class referred to in the zoning table, then may determine that the use is consistent with the objectives of a particular zone. The key words in these parts of the legislation is the word and the requirement to see if an appropriate definition can reasonably be found and determined as falling within a use class referred to in the zoning table. This occurs before you step outside of the zoning table definitions into 3.18.2i. A recent decision delivered in December by the SAT upheld the Shire of Manjimup's decision in a similar matter, and they referred to the reasonable determining part of 3.18.2. What they said was, and I've cut a bit out because I don't want to bore you with, judge talk. Further, planning schemes are to be construed broadly and sensibly, not pedantically. Definitions provide an explanation of the meaning of terms used in the scheme and are obviously of general application and intended to cover a variety of circumstances. Just because it says, you've got workers living there and it doesn't specify that, it doesn't matter. People have got to live in there. As Wilson J. observed in Chafari, they will ordinarily be construed in a manner which acknowledges that planning schemes are largely the work of town planners, not parliamentary council. Ergo, they should be read as a whole and applied in a practical and common sense and not overly technical way, and in a fashion which will best achieve their evident purpose. An officer would be expected to go through the uses and definitions on the table in LPS or R codes and see if there is a definition that reasonably fits it. It doesn't need to be pedantic. If this is not reasonably possible, then, as we said, 3.18.2i may apply. The officer then is free to determine if a provided definition is applicable. So this is not ambiguous. It stops people creating a name for something that isn't the same as a listed definition to get around what they want and circumventing a non-approval. In relation to the application, there have been numerous attempts by objectors to highlight there are a number of definitions that reasonably describe the structure being applied for. And I don't know if you want me to read out the residential building, but basically it is a building together with rooms and buildings such as used, designed for the purpose of human habitation. It doesn't say if they have to be workers or not. It's just people living in it. And it can be, temporarily by 2 persons or permanently by 7 or more. So it's not the job, it's not the number. And these people, if there's 7 or more, who do not comprise a family, which was mentioned before. So until just before, there's been no advice provided to objectives specifically addressing how the residential building definition does not reasonably fit what has been proposed when they have asked. The issue, of course, for the applicant is that it's designated as ex-use and as such not capable of approval under LPS 7. Now, I have spoken to the Department of Planning and my hunting and legislative checking myself because I like to make sure I'm not going mad, and they confirmed what I'm saying is correct. The Shire need to do an amendment to the scheme and not look to squeeze this through the other uses pathways. Workforce accommodation is a rising topic, but currently is designed for a temporary purpose. As you saw, it's not for long-term permanence, and we haven't seen any note that this is going to be there for 3 months or 6 months. It's a permanent structure for a permanent arrangement. It's not temporary. It is proposed that the Shire can look at what the Shire of Manjimup have done with the recent addition of rural workers accommodation, which is now a Class A for priority agriculture. That is a correct way to manage the matter, rather than trying to accommodate the application in a way that isn't transparent or that seeks to work around the scheme text. The application speaks of needing to have workers live on site for efficiency reasons. However, the statement was stated but not objectively demonstrated. The applicant doesn't live on site, and nor do his Australian workers. So what the efficiencies are is unclear. COVID was a once in 100 years event, so it's statistically unlikely to reoccur. The workers are not lacking in accommodation. Many homeowners are taking single people in as boarders. The issue with accommodation are not substantiated. The workers are all located close by, so needing them to live on site is not as critical as if they all lived in Bunbury or the surrounds. Their travel time is equivalent to Simon and the local people. One objector mentioned twice being accosted in her own home in our streets and having lewd comments made by an itinerant worker. Luckily, she was able to get away before anything worse occurred. And that's a real thing. That's not subjective. That's a fact. People are entitled to want to feel safe in their home and location without additional risk being added because somebody wants what they want.
1 more minute.
I'll go fast. We don't have 24/7 police here. The risk to workers' health is also a risk factor. The accommodation will be sprayed around every week. The orchards may be a distance away, but the pumpkins are within a few metres. Pesticides have been found to cause a number of adverse effects on human health, from acute intoxication to chronic diseases. That's a risk. There's been no explanation about how the extra workers from 8 to 12 people will be accommodated in an 8-bedroom accommodation, or how the designated site manager will manage issues. They might be part of them, and there's that risk of overcrowding. There is no indication that the workers are free to say no to the accommodation. And I know from working at immigration for years, visa holders are often scared to refuse their boss no matter the request. This puts workers at risk of their human rights being breached. That's a risk. There are no air conditioners. And I don't know about you the other day, but in this heat, that could be an issue. Putting them in will, of course, reduce the amenity further.
Thank you,
Objectives
Ms. O'Sullivan.
about 4.
No, I'm sorry, but I'll
Without
have to
an
let
extension.
everyone go
Okay,
over.
no, that's fine.
To be
Sort of
fair
did
and
last
equitable.
week,
If you'd
okay.
like to wait though, Councillor, first of all, I'd like to allow our specialist to respond in case there was anything, rather than interrupt you all the way through.
Sure.
We thought we'll just wait. And then I'd like to open it up to councillors for questions.
Thank you.
Is there any comments? Principal Planner.
President, thank you. And thank you for providing that information, because I can understand that there's a lot of uncertainty out in the community as to whether this is a use that we can consider and whether not. And I would not want to make, provide wrong information to council. That's really not the intent of assessing an application that we've received. The application clearly that we have received stated that it is for workforce accommodation, and the reasoning behind that is to accommodate the workers that will be working on site, where I hear your concern about the residential building, but that is a different type of use. That will allow, it will allow other people to also reside in the building. And a lot of the concerns that we have received was about people being concerned that it would become a backpackers, because then people will come and go and there will be no control as to who's staying on the property, where in this instance with the workforce accommodation, it is people that the landowner will know, they will reside on the property because he has appointed them to work on his farm. And I think that is the difference between the land uses, and that needs to be understood, because the town planning scheme, yes, we do have a table in the town planning scheme, the zoning table, that sets out what uses can be considered and where they can be considered in which zones. But we do often get a land use which is not in this scheme yet. And in this case, workforce accommodation is one of those land uses that is in the model scheme text. So the Department of Planning wants all of the town planning schemes to move towards the model scheme text. We are in a process of, or the Shire is in a process of reviewing our local planning strategy, and as part of that, the follow-on would be to review or to write a new town planning scheme based on what is in the strategy. And in doing that, we would need to consider all the information in the model scheme text, because that's likely to flow into our town planning scheme. So although workforce accommodation is not a use class currently in our scheme, it is in the model provisions, and going forward it will definitely be a land use in our scheme. So it's already giving you that idea that it is different to other buildings. It is not a land use that we've made up. There is a definition for it in the model provisions, and there's also a process currently in the deemed provisions which overrides the Shire's local town planning scheme provisions. And in the deemed provisions, it talks about if we do get a land use that's not in the table, how do we deal with that? And that is seen as a complex application, because we have to advertise it a bit more wide, which we have done in this case. We've put notices in the paper, we've put a notice on the site, referred it to the adjoining neighbours and several agencies. So it was dealt with by the Shire as a complex application, and that's where we've received all the response from the community and considered those concerns in this process. But I just want to clarify that although it may look in the scheme as if there's other uses, that's also where it could also potentially sit. That's not what the application was made for. That's not the information that we've received, and that's not how it has been considered. Is that clear?
Thank you. CEO?
Probably just the other question I just seek a bit of clarification from Mr. Mueller or Mr. Marshall, is just in regards to the assertion that the recent SAT determination regarding Manjimup, that is actually a precedent, or there's parallels in some of the dynamics and decision-making and determination by the member at SAT. Do staff have any comment on the validity of that assertion?
Through the chair. Thanks, CEO. That was an interesting SAT decision, and it was more so because of the procedural nature of the way SAT actually assessed the decision made by the Shire of Manjimup. And the decision made was to refuse an application for grouped dwellings. So quite different to what we're dealing with.
Ancillary accommodation.
Well, the application was for group dwellings. Yeah, it definitely
No, the
was for-
council decided it was
Can we
a group
just let...
dwelling.
Sorry.
It's definitely
Sorry,
for
not
group
to-
dwellings. If it had been on the same building clearance, then it would have maybe fallen under ancillary, and that was one of the things that SAT said, if there would have been discretion if it was actually on the same building envelope, but it wasn't because there was two separate envelopes. So under the Shire of Manjimup LPS, they actually had no means or any discretion to approve the application for the group dwelling.
That's right.
So they were bound to actually refuse it. So quite different to what we're looking at here. But what I think is really important is just the nature of the decision making. And I recommend anyone to actually read that report so you can see the level of detail that the SAT. We can factual knowledge and set them up to make be able to make a good decision, but also one that will, it'll meet the SAT interrogation if or when it is refused or deferred or approved and taken to that level. So I think it's a good example, but it's quite a different example to what we're putting to council today.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Now, councillors, do you have any questions of Mrs. O'Sullivan?
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor
Through the Chair.
Lindeman? Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I just want to ask you, you mentioned an incident with an itinerant worker.
Yeah.
Was that reported?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. The objector's not here. I can't answer for what she did or did. I read it the same time as you did. So it was in the objections. That's when I saw it.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? No? Thank you very much, Mrs. O'Sullivan. Right. Okay, the next deputation is Mrs. Scafidi in relation to the same item 9.1.1. And is that microphone all right for you?
Possibly not, because I'm 2'0", so. But I'll do my best. Is that? And I'm sorry. Look, I actually have. I'm a visual person, so I actually have a slide. My daughter is going to point it. I can't talk to everything in this slide because it is got too much information. So I hopefully am going to hit the target things with what I'm going to look for. Okay.
Thank you.
Right, so my name is Tricia Scafidi, 37 Marco Promenade, Pelican Point, and here are my details. I'm well qualified and fully appreciate how complicated this application is for both the officers and the councillors. I am here today because there are so many statements lacking substance, which is clouding the major health risk embedded in this application. How does that happen? To get to business. That's what we want. The Scafidis owned this property for 40 years. It wasn't a blank canvas. We simply farmed every inch, and the Russers are way better farmers than us. Seasonally hiring up to 30 people, we never had accommodation issues because farmers in this area are employers of choice. We're close to town, travellers want to be in town, they're on a working holiday. COVID-19, accommodation didn't cause the workforce issues. We all know the border shutting did. Backpackers could not come, those here went home. No one was travelling around, that's not seasonal. 4 more in peak season, yep, that's seasonal, but now staff are bunking together. It's been stated the land is not good farming land, but the pictures and history say differently. Last week, the consultant confirmed location is the important question, yet there is no documentation presenting a proper assessment of options, just repeated statements. The executive response was no location is suitable due to a lack of services, in particular, power. Why? Because the applicant told you so during a site visit, but a simple government search proves otherwise. Power is everywhere. We have off-grid technology. Solar and batteries is an option. Many of us are updating today. Power is not a limiting factor to adjoining lots. There are other options. Every box can be ticked, just not necessarily on this lot. Food safety, fresh care has been repeatedly cited as a major constraint. Again, it does not specify the location of an accommodation facility.
Excuse me, Mrs. Scafidi. Are these new facts that are being brought up now? Have they been brought up in the objection period?
Sorry?
Have these facts been brought up in the objection period?
These are, this particular one is really evident in, like it's in all of the submission. It's not new, it's fresh care and food hand safely has been one of the major things that's been cited as a reason for this. So I wouldn't call it new, but if you want to say it's new, I'm happy to.
Okay, no, that's...
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I definitely can guarantee I don't have... Anyway, workers' facilities, 14.5 requires workers' facilities to be separated from produce, food handling and storage areas. i.e. not in the packing shed, but next door is okay, unless it's a security risk. It requires all workers to have basic food safety training. So why is it a major planning consideration supported by just statements and no facts? Because the facts don't support the application.
Sorry, not supported with fact. Who are you referring to?
So I'm actually referring to the application. So the application says Fresh Care stops you from having facilities in a certain location. It doesn't say that. So Fresh Care can actually be in a location next to the shed.
So you're referring to the applicant's statement?
Yes. So that is the fact. So what I'm saying is the applicant has made a lot of statement in that, but there's no fact to say this is the section of that Fresh Care standard.
Thank you, Ms. Kafidi.
Do you mind if I grab a quick drink of water? Okay. A high-level location assessment reveals power's not an issue, it's there. Food safety accreditation is not a risk. Septic water, gravelling existing rocks can be done. It's not rocket science. Area 5 sterilises good farming land, but poses also a huge risk to occupants. Hold that thought, it's critical. I'll discuss it in my next slide. Areas 1, 2 and 3 are there and outlines why, but look carefully, it's not quite a valid justification. As a farmer, I wouldn't want there. No business wants people near their operations when they're not there. It's a security risk. As an investor, I'd personally agree with the West Australian Planning Commission and put it in town. Everything can be argued and interpreted in many different ways. Us accountants do it every day. The application does not easily fit, so it's been put in a not listed bucket. Anything can go there. Use has to be consistent with the zone's objectives, which centres around protecting priority ag. Yes, the officers have assessed these conditions, but I believe there are real oversights because it is so complicated. This scheme does not allow for ancillary accommodation, so the officer and consultant instead argue accommodation is ancillary to operations. Changing the order of the words does not change the fact seasonal workers are backpackers on a working holiday, have been forever. It's a key element to Donnybrook's long farming history. That's the whole reason why you couldn't get them during COVID. The CEO and officers are relatively new to the Shire, so equally may not know that fact. The state's position on the matter is where practical, it should be in established towns, not close enough. Last week, the consultant told you the requirement has been met, but put simply, the requirement has not been met. Sorry, did I? I thought you were.
I am struggling actually because I find the tone of the presentation is...
It's only so I could get to 10 minutes.
I'm speaking.
Oh, sorry.
The tone of the presentation is quite condescending at times. So if you could just speak more respectfully, I'd appreciate that.
It's not intended. I was just afraid that I would go over 10 minutes. So if I'm afforded...
It's more the content than the speed.
Okay, all right, no worries. So the West Australian Planning Commission are there to protect the farming land, the very same objectives of the Shire. So let's listen to them. The critical buffer zones are missing. The Department of Health and EPA have these guidelines for the purpose of health impacts, past, present and future. They are supported by science via the CSIRO, experts in this field. You can't control whether it changes. It doesn't align to when people are home. Chemical deposits don't go away when you get home. They stay for dinner. Both agencies clearly state to be safe, market gardens require 300-metre buffer from areas, hotels, motels, hostels, caravan parks, basically wherever you stay overnight. But the officer's assessment is no distance is required on the basis accommodation is ancillary, not permanent resident, and near low impact crops. They're totally missing the fact
Excuse
that
me, Mrs. Fakir. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm looking at a statement here and it says, surely it's not normal for a planning process not to apply EPA guidelines and effectively disagree with scientific evidence and the experts in the Donnybrook Shire.
And that is actually in the officer's report. The officer has stated what the guidelines are and they've assessed them as not being required. They're the words of the officer.
I'd just like to give Ms Milner the opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah, go for it.
I also want to just make sure that you understand that the application were referred to DOER,
Sorry, say that again.
to Department of Water and Environmental Regulation. So all those departments have actually had a look at it, and as well as Department of Health, and they all provided comments, and none of them has raised what you are now raising here. So I just want to flag that as, you know, we have considered that. It's not as if it's just been brushed off. Thank you.
Can I respond
Thank
to
you,
that, please?
Councillor.
Is
You
that
can
okay?
continue your presentation. You have,
Is it okay if I, sorry,
you
can I
have
please
4
just,
minutes left.
can I just respond to that
No,
particular
you
question?
can keep going with your
Okay.
presentation.
Both agencies state, all right, is a human backpacker at less risk than a family just because it's not a permanent residence? Today's chemicals are tomorrow's carcinogenics. PFAS is one of the worst. Surely it's not normal to have a planning process not apply EPA guidelines. The recommendation imposes a condition which only allows workers on one lot to live there, but the water licence tells you there are 4. The applicant accepted them. How can they imply that when the trees are right next to each other on 2 different lots? Yet another oversight. This is not proposed to be free accommodation, so maybe to invest in a better decision. The reality is the application lacks substance and real evidence. Why? Because if it did, the officers would never have recommended it and you wouldn't approve it. Zoning, ancillary accommodation and backpackers on working holidays are not allowed. Changing the description doesn't change the fact. Worded correctly, this application fails the zoning table. I also think it's not clear and agree with Councillor Bailey. EPA buffers require 300-metre zone, which again means the application fails the zoning objectives.
I'm sorry, what was that about Councillor Bailey?
He had said it wasn't clear. I'm agreeing with him, saying that in the last agenda briefing, he'd said that he didn't think the zoning was clear.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we really accept EPA guidelines provided by expert bodies supported by science do not apply when they apply to hostels? Basically, everywhere you stay overnight. Isn't that the entire purpose of this application? Human health risks have been totally missed, but could be in the hundreds and thousands over time. Farmers know the risk of chemicals because of fresh care. It is a significant risk, which is why you do chemical testing. You cannot sell produce to the public for a period of time after spraying. Why? Because the chemicals need to break down. But the officer assessed it as low risk to the occupants. Why? I believe because someone told them so. They're not qualified to make such an assessment. They're planners, not scientists. None of us are qualified to dispute.
Excuse me. I'm not allowing any comments like that. That's unforgivable, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm actually...
Ms Scafidi, I reject that comment.
Okay. Yep.
We do have outstanding staff. They are qualified in what they do.
No worries. Look, I'm flagging this with the utmost sincerity, not just for, I'm flagging it for everyone, for the applicants as well. They're not awful people. The truth is, this process documents the legal risk. Unintentionally, it is now there, which means no one can say they didn't know there was a risk of human life. By approving people to live in the middle of chemical sprays without appropriate buffers, everyone needs to just consider that and take a minute. Council's basic governance requires you to make good decisions based on complete factual information. You and the officers, in my view, don't have that. There are a lot of statements with very little support. Honestly, you can't refute EPA guidelines and disagree with their agreement. They are the experts. You absolutely have to take that 300-metre buffer into consideration, and so does equally the applicant. When you apply these facts, the objection clearly fails to meet the scheme. Use doesn't override objectives for that lot. You all have a lot of documents with support, and your questions have not been correctly always answered. Why? Because otherwise I don't believe this stacks up. It is for all these reasons and many more that I urge you to vote no to this application and to encourage the applicant to resubmit with a different location accompanied by a proper full assessment. Things are simply buried in 600 pages. It's not deliberate, it is a part of how we work governance. Last but not least, this is because it came up in the last agenda meeting. The consultant is correct, referred to a number of submissions as being emotive, which don't have planning merit, but neither do a lot of other things presented last week. Understand this is their homes, they're nice people. They are human, not corporate planners and small business owners. My family and I don't live there. The Russo family does not live there. The consultants do not live there. If you look closely, the submissions tell you Mr Russo knew the community would object well before it was submitted. He spoke to them beforehand and the neighbours asked him to consider a different location. When he said no, they all said they would object. They're his contractors, his tradies and his friends. These objections are not a surprise to the applicants, and they know why the objections are so emotive. Neighbours see and witness their surroundings every day, which is what Neighbourhood Watch is all about. Let's all just take a breath and keep that in mind. Myself, the applicant, the consultant, can't attest to what happens. We don't live there. We're not part of that Neighbourhood Watch. Professionally, I can tell you, a single manager working at a farm creates a conflict of
Mrs.
interest.
Scafidi, I gave the last deputation an extra minute,
I'm done.
and I'll give you that as well.
I'm actually done. So
Thank you.
I do have a copy
Now,
of my...
I'll now ask our specialist, our highly trained specialist, to respond on any comments that may have been incorrect or not factual. And then I'll open it up to questions.
Okay.
Through the chair, thank you,
Oh,
Madam President.
sorry. Is it okay for the last
Excuse
slide?
me. Sorry, I'm speaking, and now I've passed the speaking on to somebody else. You need to fall in with the pattern of the
Apologies.
meeting. Thank you. The Director of Operations.
Through the chair, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Ms Scafidi. There's quite a lot there to digest.
There's a lot.
Delivered at quite a pace, let's say. Can I say, look, the officers have heard the residents. They've looked at every one of the 31 submissions. We've received quite a few further submissions since then would have been addressed in accordance with good planning policy. We do find it difficult to accept your claims that we haven't, or we've dismissed information. In particular, you're saying the Department of Water, Environment and Rivers aren't qualified to comment on this application when we've referred it to them. And
No, I don't.
well,
Mrs. Scafidi.
yeah, the aspersions have been cast and they're incorrect. So it's not this new information that you've presented regarding particularly the EPA is not correct because we've referred it to the authority. So thank you, appreciate your opinions, but the opinion of DEWA, you'd have to agree as they are the experts. So I think there's so much more, Madam President, but I think it would be good just to sort of finish there because otherwise we're starting to enter debate and I'm uncomfortable with that. I think
agree.
the information in the reports and responses already is suffice.
Could I please just afford...
Mrs. Scafidi, you can only speak when I allow you to speak. I'm sorry. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. Councillors, do you have any questions of Mrs. Scafidi? No questions? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mrs. Scafidi. Okay, the third deputation on this matter, 9.1.1, is Mr. Gary Fitzgerald on behalf of Citizens Australia in relation to...
Thank you, Shire President. Councillors, thank you for your time this afternoon. For the record, Gary Fitzgerald, Director of Tech on Australia, Town Planning Consultant, representing the Russo family. Councillors, we're not introducing any additional information. I'd like perhaps to clarify a couple of points, if I may. Specifically, perhaps the land use designation issue. I think I should perhaps further clarify that. It's been well and truly documented by your executive staff. The report is comprehensively addressed using land use matters. When we talk about, as you know, decisions, they're made under what's referred to as the planning framework. State planning policy, local planning policy, etc., town planning scheme. So the decisions that are made, which are documented in your report, have been based on a local planning framework. However, and have been comprehensively addressed. I mean, for example, and particularly addressing issues that town planning deals with, such as your land use compliance, the amenity and character of the area, traffic, environmental. These are key planning determinations, and they've been dealt with comprehensively. The issue of specific land uses, look, I can tell you from our company's point of view, we deal with applications all over the state. We've dealt with numerous uses that are not listed under schemes under the process that was explained by the locals, by your staff, beg your pardon. And that quite simply is that the planning framework does give a mechanism to deal with uses that are not listed. Not every use will be listed under your scheme, as you well know. And the process then is that you have a comprehensive process under your planning scheme, as is under every planning scheme, to deal with it. And in particular, Council, I think perhaps what's not been discussed particularly, although it's been raised in the report, is that's not just a subjective interpretation. It's based on, for example, the objectives of the zoning of the land, which is what, again, your staff have identified. And councillors, that's critical. SAT matters, determination by council. What is the objectives of the zone? Well, the objectives of the zone, I won't read all of them, but particularly noting, support the improvement of resource and investment security for agriculture and allied industry, encourage value-adding opportunities to agricultural products and sources, promote the existing intensive agricultural land use. These are all objectives that are promoting the type of thing and the use that's being proposed by Mr Russo, and that is something that's supporting the operation of his farming use. It's not uncommon. It's dealt with throughout the state. We are quite familiar with the one at Manjimup because we're dealing with applications down there. But as I said, a use class not listed, workforce accommodation, as I mentioned last week, councillors, it's promoted by the Farmers Federation, by Tourism Australia, by lots of organisations that recognise the importance that this type of use brings to local communities. Just in particular, I note the comment, and look, there was a lot of information, as your executive staff said, given in a short period of time. But I would note that the issue of spraying, I think, is identified in your report, and it doesn't relate to uses on existing farming properties. It relates to new residential and the 300-metre buffer. So it's not in contravention of those regulations. And again, I think if your staff wanted to pick out that particular item, it certainly is not in breach of those regulations that's contained within your report. So councillors, as I said last week, we're obviously speaking for the recommendation because it's a proposal that's consistent with your scheme. It's a proposal that's been comprehensively dealt with under the planning framework that is the mechanism by which that decision should be made. All of that stacks up and the recommendation is for approval. Yes, we and our client appreciate that landowners in the area are passionate about their concerns, and we understand that. But speaking purely from an objective town planning point of view, the proposal complies with your local planning scheme, it complies with state planning policy and the whole planning framework, and councillors, we'd urge you to support the executive recommendation that's presented to you tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do councillors have any questions for... I'm forgetting the name here. Mr Fitzgerald, sorry. Councillor Bailey?
Through the chair, could you just go over that 300 metres for spray and stuff again?
Yeah,
you're talking about past and present.
My notes, but it's within the submissions and it refers to, of course, I think the reference, I stand to be corrected, was the guidelines for separation of agricultural residential land use, which was an August 2012 document. And that refers to new residential developments should be protected from the rights of the existing agricultural. Goes on to say, excluding dwellings associated with bona fide agricultural holdings. So clearly, the proposed development is not of a new residential nature in that context, and it's associated with bona fide agricultural operations. So it's consistent with that policy. And the reason that is because obviously it has a relationship to the farming use. But that's in your submissions, in your reports to councillors, but that was the reference that I noted from the submission tonight, this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Hall?
Thank you. Thanks again for speaking. Enjoyed your presentation at the agenda briefing. Just a question, you did mention just previously about the objectives of the zone that this application is on. Did you consider the objectives of the zone of the neighbouring properties that have written their thoughts in? Thank you.
Absolutely, Councillor. The surrounding land use is putting in context. There's a mixture of similar zoning as obviously the subject site and small town and other zoning. I forget the specific use of it, but absolutely, from a town planning perspective, the issues of amenity, character, etc., they come into play in considering adjoining landowners. And yes, your staff have considered that, our client has considered that, and we've certainly taken that into account.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. Any other questions, councillors? No? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillors, we move into item 6.4, delegates' reports, for which we have none, and then adoption by exception. We'll just take a moment to deal with the microphone. Okay. Councillors, we have a number of items in tonight's agenda that can be adopted by exception. Would anyone like to move that item 7.1.1, minutes of the ordinary council meeting, 9.1.2, section 31, reconsideration requests for group dwelling applications P24075 and P24082, Robert Street, Ballinger. Item 9.2.1, schedule of accounts paid as at the 30th of October, is it, or November? 30th of November. 9.2.2, statement of financial activity report, that was the one, for the period ending 31st of October. 9.2.4, council policy EXE/CP4, welcome to and acknowledgement of country. And item 9.2.6, council policy EMCP2, live streaming and recording of council meetings. Would councillors like to move? Councillor Bailey?
Would it be possible to take 9.1.2 out? I've got a few questions on that.
Yes. Yes, it's fine.
Thank you.
Yep. So, the same again, but without 9.1.2. Would councillors like to move adoption by exception? Councillor Hall, and seconded. Did I say 9.2? No? Okay. Just a moment and we'll adjust that in the agenda. Okay. And seconded by Councillor Patrick. I'm assuming Councillor Bailey, sort of Councillor Hall, you're not wanting to speak to the motion? Councillor Patrick? If no one's speaking against it, we'll take that as carried. Okay. That moves us on to item 8, reports of committees. And at 8.1, we have a late submission, was it? No, that one. Okay. At 8.1, we have the 8.1.1, we have Bunbury Geograph Group of Council's membership. CEO, would you like to just mention the
Just very
developments?
briefly, yeah, thanks very much, and through you, Chair. So, councillors, this remains a fairly fluid sort of matter before a number of councils within the region. And it's seeking your formal consideration of the Bunbury Geograph Group of Council membership. I spoke to this item in some detail at the last week's agenda briefing. You can see that throughout the report it provides, I guess, a balanced report about some of the pros and the cons, and confirms that the financial contribution of the $15,417 should council wish to stay in is really just the one-off, the buy-in contribution, as well as there would be a pro rata requirement for us to make a contribution should we want to undertake or participate on any of the projects subsequent should council wish to stay in. As per my email advice to councillors subsequent to the agenda briefing, Collie Council has confirmed its intention to withdraw from Bungeo Group of Councils, and I guess I also iterate my point raised at the agenda briefing that the Bun in Bunbury wasn't at the last meeting, and we're not too sure as to whether their commitment is moving forward. So given the fact that this is a fluid matter, and there may be an alternate sort of opinion for councillors, even though I didn't want to change my recommendation, we have come up with a alternate recommendations that is on the screen there. So that council receives and notes the minutes of the, it's in front of me. Notes the minutes of the Bungeo Group of Councils meeting held on 28th of November and attached to the report, and confirms its decision of the 25th of September to withdraw from that group effective 1st of July, and request the CEO advise the Bungeo Group of Councils Secretariat accordingly. And then, as it is if council does want to move and adopt that, as it is different from the officer's recommendation, we need to put the reason for the decision, and the reason may well be that council is in the process of developing an economic development and tourism strategy for the Shire, and as such does not have a clear agreed future direction on economic development and tourism matters. So that's just an alternate for council to consider.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO. Any questions before we just move into this? Okay. Would councillors like to move the executive recommendation as it is set out in the report?
I think Councillor Bailey, do you want to move the alternate? You would.
All right, so we don't have a mover or a seconder for the original? Okay. Would someone like to move the alternate motion? Councillor Bailey, and seconded Councillor Lindemann? Okay, Councillor Bailey, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I think this is a great outcome. I think there could be a lot of costs associated with the Bunbury Group, and I think we could look at it in 12 months' time, 2 years' time, if they start getting some runs on the board.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Lindemann?
Yep, I agree. I don't see any significant changes. We've been members for a long time. Nothing's really happened. You know, I don't believe more money spent will produce any different results. It's also pro rata and uncapped, so you don't know what you're in for, and staff time, etc., hasn't been costed either. So I am comfortable with our original decision of withdrawing.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? If no one plans to speak against the motion, unless you'd like a right of reply? Okay. We'll consider that carried unanimously. Moving on to item 8.2, Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting. Now, this is the late edition, and
Yes.
the CEO will introduce this report.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
So through you, Chair. Yes, and very briefly, councillors, you've been provided, I believe yesterday, with a copy of the minutes from the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting held on Monday. I guess I won't go into great detail, so I've taken the documents as read, but I guess there's just a couple of points I wanted to touch on. I guess it was really pleasing to see the auditors audited financial statements, so a clean set of statements. There's no audit opinion with recommendations for improvements when it comes to our internal controls or indeed our financial management. So it's a clean bill of health for the Shire, and it's a testament and an absolute credit to the Shire staff for getting that clean audit opinion and clean set of statements. Those set of statements are included in the annual report that is before you tonight for formal consideration and adoption. The other items, just very briefly touched on, was a presentation from our recently appointed Work Health and Safety Officer, James Harcourt, around the recent adoption of our Strategic Work Health and Safety Plan, which I guess is, again, from an organisational maturity and a risk management perspective, a great step forward. So we have a strategic approach to our work health and safety. But during that presentation, Mr Harcourt also provided a good briefing on some of the granular improvements that have been undertaken to keep our staff safe throughout the process. I provided, also tabled was the recent Office of the Auditor General's performance audit in regards to maintaining regional local roads. I guess that's really timely, that report, and whilst our council wasn't subject to or chosen as a candidate council to be subject to that report, certainly the findings out of that are quite valid for us as an organisation, particularly the outcome of the recent community survey, which rates roads as one of the most important topics for our Shire. So I think the fact that we're looking at closing that gap in our asset knowledge and feeding that knowledge into our asset management plans in our future budgets is really encouraging. And then the final item, Chair, was just a verbal briefing that I provided to the Audit Committee, and that touched on a number of strategic matters or risk matters, including the successful appointment of Tango Consulting and the commencement of our ICT strategy development, which will create a clear roadmap for our ICT investment into the future. We spoke about the council plan review, which obviously the community survey was the first step or the precursor step to that council plan review. Spoke about our asset management plans and some of the budget process, and then outlined some of the content of the workforce plan, which will be brought up formally to council in the new year for consideration. So happy to take any questions as required, Chair.
Do you have any questions before we put the matter to decision? Okay. Well, if someone would like to move that council receive the unconfirmed minutes from the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting held on the 15th of December, and also adopt the recommendations as detailed in the minutes and summarised in items 8.1.1 to 8.1.4 above, be adopted. Councillor Lindemann, and seconder. Deputy President Purick. Councillor Lindemann, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
No, thank you, but it is very pleasing to have had such a good report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purick?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation? We'll take that as carried. Moving into item 9, reports of officers, and 9.1, Director of Operations. Item 9.1.1, develop an application P25041, workforce accommodation, lot 103, 107, Irish Town Road in Donnybrook. And I will ask the Director of Operations to just introduce the report and position us, please.
Thank you, Madam President. We certainly had a lot of discussion on this item, and so just a quick summary. The purpose of this report is to present Council with the assessment of the DA for the workforce accommodation. The application lodged by TECON Australia on behalf of the Russo family seeks approval for workforce accommodation to support agricultural operations within the priority agricultural zone under Local Planning Scheme 7. The proposal was advertised in accordance with the statutory requirements, including notification to adjoining landowners and public display. Submissions were received from 31 community members during the advertised consultation period, with submissions raising concerns about visual impact, siting of the accommodation near existing residences, potential noise and privacy issues, water table and effluent disposal risks, and the transient nature of occupants. Specific objections highlighted fears of increased traffic, unsupervised activity and impacts on neighbourhood safety and amenity. Conversely, the application aims to provide housing for seasonal workers essential to farm productivity, with operational measures proposed to mitigate impacts, including on-site supervision, parking provision and compliance with health and environmental standards. Post issue of the agenda for this ordinary council meeting, council has received further feedback from our community by several emails and tonight several deputations. Acknowledging that there is significant community interest in this development application, council is asked to consider these submissions alongside the planning assessment by our subject matter experts, which concludes that, subject to enforceable conditions, the development can operate compatibly with the surrounding rural uses and maintain the objectives of the priority agricultural zone. And Madam President, I'll just make reference to the question that was asked and answered previously. Where there are no third-party appeal rights in Western Australia for planning decisions, should the submitter disagree with the Shire's interpretation of the scheme, it is open to them to refer the matter to the Minister for Planning for independent review. So someone did mention they could refer it to the SAT. Well, that's not the case. The applicant can refer it to the SAT, not the submitter. So just for clarification, so that you've got full view of what may proceed. So thank you.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Councillors, do you need to ask any further questions? All right. Would someone like to move? Sorry, Councillor Bailey.
Sorry, just a question. Could you just give me another brief on 3.18.2, please?
Thank you, Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. As was noted in the officer's report, the workforce accommodation is not specifically listed in the zoning table, and this is the crux of the issue. In such circumstances, clause 3.18.2 provides a statutory pathway for considering unlisted uses, allowing the local government to, there's 3 points, determine that the use is consistent with the objectives of the zone and permit it. It goes on to another point, and just to hear the deputations before, there's no and or at this one. Item 2, determine that the use may be consistent and advertise the proposal. So accordingly, the proposal was advertised. Or, item 3, determine that the use is not consistent and therefore not permitted. The determination under clause 3.18.2 at the time of application is received as to whether the use is permitted or not permitted or requires advertising has been made by the officers.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Is that sufficient, Councillor Bailey? Any other questions before we move to debate? Okay. Would councillors like to move the recommendation? Councillor Patrick, and seconder, Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Yes, thank you. You might want to start my 10 minutes now. No. Look, firstly, I'd like to thank the officers for their thorough report and responses.
You actually only get 5.
Okay, that's fine. It's not that bad. But genuinely thank the officers for the amount of work that's gone into this. And I do want to assure members of the public and the applicant, as well as those that have submitted, that there have been pages of emails backwards and forwards from councillors getting clarification, asking questions. The objections or the concerns that have been raised in the objections, councillors have taken on board and requested, and I thank the administration for the responses and the thorough work on that. This particular type of matter places councillors in a very hard position, as we sort of have an expectation to ensure our decision-making complies with relevant policies and procedures. But our role as a councillor also is to represent the interests of electors, ratepayers and residents of the district. From everything that I've been able to ascertain, it appears to me the planning approvals, although there's some potential grey areas, are appropriate and in accordance with the requirements of the local planning strategies, and the applicants have gone above and beyond to address the concerns raised and their willingness to comply with the recommendations of the officers' reports. Also comfortable the health concerns have been reviewed by professionals within the Shire Administration, the Department of Health and Department of Water. I've read the report and the objections and spent some time early Saturday morning driving around the Irishtown Heights estate, and I apologise to the lady in high vis that was walking that may have thought I was staking out residences. I wasn't. It was about 6:15 a.m. and so I do apologise to that lady. In reading the objections that were received, I'm not going to deny I was quite surprised at what I believe to be quite a fair bit of prejudicial commentary and speculation of possible behaviour and possible, actions of particular groups of people. Having lived and worked in regional communities, last place being Carnarvon, where the majority of plantations have workforce accommodation, as well as working across the Kimberley, including Kununurra, which is similar. I worked for Department of Communities and Department of Health in those areas, and we saw greater crime and antisocial behaviour from long-term community members of various demographics than we did from transient workforce. I also disagree with the notion that there's plenty of other suitable accommodation in town. At times, potentially yes, but in the last 6 days alone, if you have a look on the Donnybrook community page, there's 4 requests for accommodation, including single rooms, granny flats or anything else. There isn't an abundance of accommodation in town. If we can make that available for families and other community members, I'm all for it. However, unlike the visual outlook of a couple of extraction sites that I have voted to support, which have potentially a passing view or potentially a view from 1 or 2 properties, my drive around Irishtown Heights and specifically Scafidi Place show that the majority of these properties have owners that have clearly spent a lot of time, a lot of money and a lot of effort getting it to a very high standard of presentation, and they directly overlook the proposed site, and they would have an ongoing visual impact, visual amenity impact on these properties all day, every day. Predominantly based on that, I am voting to not support this application in accordance with my role to represent the broader community. I acknowledge the applicant needs the workforce and will obviously have the right to take this application to the SAT if it is passed here, which could result in a worse result for the residents of Irishtown Heights, as many recommendations may not be included through the SAT. And that's, my position on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. I'm just going to take a moment, Councillor Lindeman. For a sec. Thank you, Councillor Lindeman.
Well, okay. Being near Christmas and we have the bell ringers, which brought a tear to my eye. I love this community and this is a very difficult decision. And I hate to see the division happening between neighbours, but this is the position I'm in and I will speak to what I believe is the decision that I'm going to make. I visited the site. This is a productive farm. And as one presenter has already mentioned, the applicant is a good farmer.
Excuse
Their
me,
grow...
just 1 minute.
Sure.
We want Tyler to hear that too. It's right.
No, it's okay.
Sorry, councillors. This is relating to a possible alternate motion, which I may have needed to mention beforehand. Can you clarify the position?
Look, just for clarity for everyone in the room, so before the meeting, Councillor Hall did send through an alternate motion, and I've just clarified whether he'd like to foreshadow that should the substantive motion fail. So I just thought it might be good procedure just to put that up. if that's okay.
What I'll do is allow Councillor Lindemann to complete her debate, and then we'll do that. Is that all right with you, Councillor Lindemann?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. Look, as I said, I've visited the site and it is a productive farm. Their grow houses are currently producing early season cucumbers with a hydroponic setup. There are plenty of examples of innovation, including soon to be installed 100% standalone solar with battery power to run the pumps and timers. This farm is a family-run small business. It is tough, risky, requires optimism, continued innovation and investment to remain viable in today's environment. We all need to eat nutritious, fresh produce. We need farmers and workers on these properties to make this happen. We have a housing shortage, and without enough affordable accommodation, who will do the work? We rely heavily on seasonal workers. I head out into the bush daily, and at this time of year, I greet many van dwellers and cars with rooftop campers parked in the dirt tracks. We don't need to end up like Margaret River with excessive illegal camping due to accommodation shortages, forcing pressure on our staff, our services, and introducing hefty fines on the very people we need to ensure supply of our food. I understand the concerns, but these people will be assisting farmers, earning wages, paying tax, purchasing from other small businesses in town, living and working on the property with conditions that mean if there was any poor behaviour, they would jeopardise both their employment and their accommodation. So I'm going to support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to the motion next, and then that way you can put forward your alternative motion?
Thank you, through the chair. Apologies for missing my opportunity to speak at the right time. I too, along with Councillor Patrick, I believe that I'll be voting against the current motion as stands. I propose a foreshadowed alternative motion that I'd like to read out.
We'll pop that up for you.
Clarify that's the wording you're looking for.
Yes, thank you.
Do you want that read out?
Yes, if you'd like to read it out. I can read it out, or
You can read it out.
you're more eloquent than I am, so if you would like to read it, I'd appreciate
All right.
it. Yeah. Not as eloquent as that truck.
Just... So Councillor Hall's alternate motion requests that Council, pursuant to Schedule 2, Part 9, Clause 68(2)(c) of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulation 2015, refuse to grant development approval for application 25041 for the workforce accommodation on Lot 103, 107 Irish Town Road, Donnybrook, for the following reasons. 1. Council acknowledges that workforce accommodation may be considered ancillary to the primary agricultural use of the land. The proposed site directly adjoins land zoned rural residential and creates an avoidable land use conflict and a sensitive interface. And 2, Clause 67(2) of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015 requires due regard to surrounding land use and development context and the likely impacts of the proposed development on the community. The Shire has received 31 submissions raising consistent and material concerns regarding amenity impacts arising from the proposal. And 3, the local planning scheme objectives for the rural residential zone seek to maintain the rural character of the locality, maintain a high level of residential amenity, minimise disturbance to the landscape through appropriate construction of buildings and structures, clearing, earthworks and access roads, and discourage or prohibit development that is not compatible with the predominantly rural and residential nature of the zone. 4, the siting of the proposed development would result in foreseeable and material amenity impacts on the adjoining rural residential area, including noise, lighting, traffic and changes to rural character, which are consistent with the objectives of the scheme, which are inconsistent with the objectives of the scheme and cannot be adequately mitigated through conditions. And 5, while the selected site offers advantages to the applicant, including being currently unused, avoiding the removal of producing crops and proximity to road access and services, Council considers that these convenience and efficiency factors do not outweigh the need to protect residential amenity and rural residential character as required under clause 67(2)(m) and (n). And 6, Council recognises the applicant's engagement with the Shire and encourages investigation and resubmission at an alternative location on the property where material amenity impacts on neighbouring rural residential land would not arise. Council further notes that established planning principles permit the removal of producing crops where justified to accommodate ancillary land uses. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to?
Just one final thought. So thank you for reading that on my behalf. We did have at the October OCM a precedent where that final statement on point 6 did occur with the Licciardello approval where producing land was removed for the purpose of ancillary use.
And for the benefits of councillors, just knowing this alternate motion is there, has this been reviewed by the CEO and Director of Operations? Is it lawful?
Yes, it was late mail, I believe. It satisfied the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, recognising that that's there, would anyone like to speak for the motion that's before us? Councillor Bailey.
Through the chair. Look, it is complicated. I think the alternative motion here could achieve the best outcome for everybody, and I will be supporting this.
Oh, we're still speaking to the recommendation that's before us?
Yes.
It's just to park that.
Yeah, no, I'm not voting. I'm just saying yes. I support this. You're looking for a seconder, are you?
No, I was looking for someone to speak to the original motion, original recommendation. For, okay. Councillor Purick.
Yeah, I would like to speak just on the original motion. Sorry. I do understand that it does have ramifications for the rural residential in the area. The work that the administration has put into this is fantastic. They have liaised appropriately with DPIRD, with DWER, with Department of Health. I guess a quick comment I'll make is about the priority agriculture and agriculture. Agriculture is often beautiful, but not always. We enjoy some fantastic bucolic landscapes in the Shire, but agriculture can be dirty, can be smelly, can be noisy. I know some of the comments objecting the application made comments about tractors operating late at night. That is agriculture. They made comments about encountering workers at 4 a.m. On winter, walking along Irish Town Road, commuting to work. I would assume that is agriculture. Donnybrook Balingup is an agricultural shire. It offers us many benefits, many beautiful locations, many beautiful views, vast open spaces, beautiful produce, but it does bring with it noise, smell, loud trucks, and that is agriculture. That's all I'll have to say.
And was that argument for or against?
That was for.
Thank you, Councillor Purick. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion for or against? I would like to speak to the motion and, sorry, Councillor McNabb, did you have your hand up?
I did not at this stage.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I would like to speak for the motion in that I have a fence probably about, I don't know, 25, 30 metres away from my bedroom, which backs onto an orchard. And I sadly miss the trees which have now been taken down because the orchardist is older now and has progressively taken his trees down. But we did have production right up to the wire fence at the back of my property. And we had great relations with those farmers. We enjoyed seeing the tractors come up and we loved the noise, we loved the smells. Didn't like the weeds sometimes, but but I think we moved to Donnybrook because it is a rural area and the smell of animals and everything that comes with it is just a pleasant part of living here in Donnybrook. We have the best of all worlds here, and I do think that there is need to support our agriculturalists in every way we can. There is pressure on accommodation for farm workers. If you walk past just trying to think, the Old Brook Lodge, it's full to the brim. There's people camping out in tents in the grassed area behind it. We have people living in the bush here in Donnybrook because they can't find homes. There is people begging for even a room in Donnybrook. I've had 4 senior citizens approach me and say, is there any smaller accommodation coming up in our is there any subdivisions with smaller accommodation coming up so they can downsize? And I can add myself to that list. Housing is critical everywhere. And if we don't find these initiatives where we can relieve that burden on people, I feel uncomfortable sitting in my home and not taking the opportunities as they arise to increase accommodation opportunities. And in also speaking for the motion, I am wholeheartedly supportive of the community, and the Irish Town community is to die for. We've worked together through the Bridge Fire and you're just amazing, absolutely amazing. And I have no doubt in my mind that if we put our minds to it in the way we worked collaboratively through that event, that if we embraced this difference and this new beginning, as I had to do in my lifetime, living in a difficult, I don't know, if you put it in the context of moving forward together, collaboratively and finding a middle ground, I believe that we can accommodate everybody's needs, I hope. And that's why I'm speaking for the motion. I also want to recognise the skills and talent that goes into the operations team, and in particular the planning team, and the many, many hours that you dedicate to responding to councillor queries and our concerns as we face these difficult decisions. And I applaud you, respect you totally. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Hall, do you have a question?
Is it appropriate time to make an amendment proposal to one of the points in the recommendation?
In the matter before council now? Yes, you can make an amendment.
Yes. The current recommendation, I think it is condition number 8.
Okay. Prior to the commencement of use?
Sorry, point 9.
All landscaping should be installed?
Yep. I'd propose to change or add prior to the commencement of use at the start.
Where did you want that, sorry?
It's at point 9.
Point 9, and you wanted to preface it with prior
Just preface with prior to the commencement of use, so it aligns with the previous.
Can I just confirm that this is, where is either Cecilia or, Principal Planner or Manager Development Applications. Is this a lawful change? Can it be implemented?
Yes, it's just changing the timeframe as to when the landscaping is required. So instead of prior to the commencement of use, it is now within 6 months of the commencement of the use. So it's changing it. It's not giving the 6 months.
Would you like to use the microphone, Councillor? Okay.
Through the chair. So just understanding, Councillor Hall, that instead of being within 6 months of commencement, you would like it at commencement. So we need to also remove the second part of that sentence. So Sam, if you could just go back to, so landscaping and access plan. Scroll back down. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And then of the commencement, delete that as well. Let's approve landscape and actually get rid of the use, I think, as well. That doesn't sound right. And maintain thereafter to the satisfaction of Shire. So, Councillor Hall, does that fit your suggestion? Yeah. And that would be lawful.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Bailey? Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to your amended motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I just would like to encourage a bit more growing time to reduce amenity once the land is used, should this be motion pass. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Bailey? No? Would anyone else like to speak against the amendment? Councillor have I done something wrong?
No, I'm
You're
just
looking
asking.
at me
So,
very weirdly, Councillor Patrick.
as the original mover of the original motion, where do we sit with that? Because, yeah, so we're not agreeing on the amendment as yet, are we?
No.
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 Okay.
So now we slip into the amendment and process the amendment. If that's defeated, we go back to the original motion.
Yep. So in that case, look, it's a tricky one because ultimately I'm not supportive of the original motion. However, in reading the room and what's been said, I will speak to support this to try and increase the visual amenity of the residents of Irishtown Heights if the original motion was to get through. So I'll be supportive of the amendment. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Just correcting that, if the amended motion is approved, then that becomes the substantive motion. Okay. All right. Would anyone like to speak against the amended motion? Then we will take the amended motion. Sorry, Councillor Bailey. Yes. So.
You just have to bear with us, councillors.
It's more than one.
You want to go from the top and scroll down? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Now, we're still working through the amended recommendation, and we had no speakers against. I think we'll put that to vote. Right of reply first for Councillor Hall. No? We'll put that to vote. All those in favour of the amended recommendation? Carried. That now becomes a substantive motion. And I think we've had everybody speak there except for Councillor McNabb. Did you want to speak to that amended, the new substantive motion, Councillor McNabb?
I don't think I have a lot to add
Thank you.
from what everyone else has said. Just, it is obviously a difficult decision for everyone trying to balance all of the needs.
Thank you.
And recognise the community concerns while also meeting the planning requirements and the proponents' intentions.
Thank you very much, Councillor McNabb. Councillors, that's everybody spoken? Is Councillor Hall?
Sorry, Madam President, I did speak about my foreshadowed motion. I didn't have an opportunity to speak against the motion just yet, if that's still permissible.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes. Well, that opportunity where you put forward the alternate motion was your opportunity to speak.
No problem, thank you.
If councillors, is it something you'd like to do? Because we can pass a motion to. Yep, okay. All right, so we're in a position of putting this matter to vote. Right of reply for Councillor Patrick. My apologies.
Thank you.
I'll go to my grave with that one.
No, all good. Appreciate it. Obviously, without adding anything new, I appreciate all the input from all the councillors. I'd still encourage councillors to consider the fact that based on the location of the proposal, the elevation of Irishtown Heights overlooking that, additional landscaping or anything else that isn't going to ease the visual amenity. I think the proposal itself for the workforce accommodation is very valid, it's very needed, it's very required. I think it should be considered elsewhere on the significant property holdings, and that council should consider the 31 objections that are directly impacted, or the majority of which are directly impacted, when there are other options available to achieve this outcome, which would support that broader part of that community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillors, will put this to vote. All of those in favour of the recommendation?
Yep. So we've got President McCarthy, Deputy President Purick, Councillor Lindeman and Councillor McNabb. No, this is the substantive motion, which is the amended motion. Yep. Well, it's your amendment, yes.
It's your amendment.
So it's not your alternate motion, it's your amended motion where we amended number 9.
Councillors, let's be clear. We're voting on the recommendation that was in the report with Councillor Hall's amendment. The alternative motion is still in the background should this not be successful. Okay, so all those in favour of the amended motion as it was appeared in the report, signify.
So President McCarthy, Deputy President Purick, Councillor Lindeman, Councillor McNabb and Councillor Bailey.
And those against?
Councillors Hall and Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, councillors. Well done. Moving on to item 9.1.2, which we pulled off en bloc. Do we need an introduction on this one? Do we need an introduction on this one?
No, there was a brief, you gave an introduction at the agenda briefing.
Okay. All right, councillors, we'll put this one straight to... Sorry? Okay, thank you. Item 9.1.2, Councillor Bailey, this is the one I think you had a question on.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I spoke to the proponent a couple of days ago, and he's questioning the double crossovers coming off a single road and whether that's really needed. He's saying that he'll go back to SAT. I don't think that should be a determining factor, but he's questioning that. And the other one is advice number 2, where if they try to subdivide it later on, the toilet, waterless toilets disappear and they'll have to put a system in. And I'm just wondering how hard and fast we are with those things.
Did you get those 2 questions, Director of Operations? Thank you. That microphone is not good.
Would you like me to respond, Madam President?
Yes, thank you.
Through the Chair. Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I've obviously got those emails the other day from the applicant and responded as follows. So particularly to do with the crossovers, there's a new plan, which is what we've put to Council for reconsideration. That plan covers the crossovers. Yeah, so if that makes sense, so those crossovers are as per what the applicant has drawn and requested. Yep. As far as item number 2, where the applicant has actually asked us to remove that clause, we accept the applicant's position, but we don't accept that we're going to remove that clause, for the reason being that if there's a future strata tile or subdivision of that property, which is highly likely, this would be another example of us kicking the can down the road and having to deal with the issue later on, which we're not prepared to recommend to council. So, and I have advised the applicant of that position.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Councillor Bailey, has that answered your questions? Thank you. Okay, councillors, we have a recommendation before us. It's a simple majority. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Bailey, and seconded by Councillor Patrick. Councillor Bailey, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Patrick? Anyone like to speak against the recommendation?
I don't know whether Councillor McNab's there or not.
Councillor McNab, are you in the meeting still? Thank you. Councillor, it's very okay just to say I'm leaving the meeting and then let me know when you come back in. Have you been gone for long?
No, just like a minute, just
All right.
banging on the door.
So we're on to, we're looking at opening up executive recommendation for item 9.1.2. Councillor Bailey has moved the motion and Councillor Patrick has seconded. And I'm just asking, is anyone speaking against the motion? No.
No.
We'll take that as carried. Moving on to item 9.1.3, Works and Services Project Planning. Would councillors like to move the recommendation? Councillor Hall, Councillor Purick. Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to the recommendation? No? Councillor Purick?
Yep.
Got to at the wrong time?
Yep. No, just briefly, I think it's great that the administration is acting in a proactive manner, doing the job once, doing it properly. So it's great to see.
Thank you, Councillor Purick. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation? Okay, we'll take that as carried. Thank you. Item 9.1.4, the Donnybrook Transit Park upgrades and remedial works. Would councillors like to move the executive recommendation, which is actually an absolute majority decision? Councillor Patrick and Councillor Purick. And Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion?
Not specifically, other than to say that, you know, I think the transit park is an asset. It's always full. It's always well, not always full, but it's well utilised. I've actually stayed there myself once. And look, I think as Director of Operations, just make sure I get the total right, advised during the agenda briefing, it's an opportune time to make sure that the works that need to be done there are done right, rather than kicking the can down the road. So, look, I think it's an appropriate action to take and encourage everyone to support it.
Councillor Purick? Oh, sorry. Great. Okay, anyone else like to speak to the motion?
It's just a question that I emailed in earlier, and I just wanted to know if you'd had any stats or further statistical information in regards to the usage of the transit park.
No,
CEO?
we don't have that, but it's in train. So, yes, we'll get that back to councillors as soon as it's available.
Keep talking, Councillor Lindemann.
That's really the only question. I guess if I'm going to speak for the motion, yes, of course, this is what I want. But I do appreciate the facts, you know, when you're talking about the usage and, you know, this, it's almost like speculation. If you don't have hard facts, you look around, you go, oh, it looks like it's pretty busy or it's not. I just like that because that gives you an indication of how much has been used, how long these perhaps investments are going to last for, you know, future planning with the amount of use that you're getting, how long do these things last? So I am seeking that sort of information in future, please.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. CEO?
My sincere apologies. I've just found the email. Sorry.
Yes?
I did seek feedback and I was told it wasn't, but we just received something. No, that's okay. It's, would you like, do you want me to send this through now and have a quick look? Sorry.
Well, is it long?
Is it
Do you want
something
to-
that can
do you
be
want to
read out, you know, just for
It's actually a
information?
pretty good report.
Well, this is what I'd like to hear,
Do we
something
wanna-
good.
do we wanna put it
It's
up on the
Christmas.
screen? Can we put it up on the screen? And apologies, councillor. I know you did ask at the agenda briefing and it has only just come through, so I'll send it through the chambers, yep. And I'll send it to all councillors as well.
While that's happening, Director of Operations would just like to mention.
Councillor Lindemann, just in response to, like, one of the things that we are looking at strategically is obviously the economic development and tourism strategy, which will be interesting to see what comes out of that as far as both transit parks go. But also, council obviously approved pre-planning for master planning at Egan Park as well. So, you know, in the future, part of that planning will also be some consultations, some statistics, which we know you love, as far as the usage goes. So I think that period of time and us using Spacerco will actually help us develop that information for you as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Director of Operations.
Sorry. So the caveat on this is I'm not suggesting that the relevant officer is incorrect. It's just I haven't read this, so I'm mindful that it's all new to exec staff as well. But if we have a look at financial, official legacy figures on number 2, final value has been extracted from Synergy Software. Sorry, councillor, I thought it was up there.
Because the further question is, when did we actually put in the card-only system? And I can't remember that. Executive Manager of Corporate Services might remember when we moved away from accepting cash and other sorts of bookings, and we moved straight into only cards. So there should be good, strong records of that and the sort of money that we were, or financial return that we would be getting from both of those transit parks.
All right, so councillors, you can see there, I think that item number 1 there, I think was provided in the report. And then there's some legacy figures there. It just shows the income for both of the transit parks. Yeah, so I just don't know that whether there's been any change since council's taken over the management of and the collection and Space to Co for bailing up. And then, here you go, Space to Co statistics, including the original location, net revenue, total customer charge, net revenue. Then it's broken down. Say again, sorry.
We went into June, we went to Space.
So in June we went to Space to Co. Yep. Yep. There we go. So that would be what, 5 months?
We just don't have the previous stats.
Yeah.
You need to have stats with, so.
Yeah, they're probably. Yeah. So I've sent that to councillors' email as well, if you want a copy of that.
So in support of the recommendation?
I'm not sure if that's or not, sorry, yes.
In support of the recommendation, it is, I believe, and I haven't really read through that very carefully, but I believe that that is an upward trend of income coming in, projected to look, I don't know what the projections are even from a budget perspective, so that would be interesting. Also, whether we meet budgets, exceed budgets, and then what we're spending on it, so the net revenue would be good to see. Okay,
Yes.
so I'm just going to say yes.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Bailey, would you like to speak to the recommendation? I'll just say one thing with regard to these both recommendations, which are absolute majorities. I'm just pleased that we had a surplus to use. So well done, team. Could I also just, well, we'll vote on, if anyone else wants to speak to the motion, now's the time to put your hand up. No? Okay, we'll put that to vote. All those in favour?
Yep.
Okay, that's carried unanimously. Can I just check, the last one was also an absolute majority,
Yes,
I think?
it was unanimous.
Did we, so doing it that way was
It's fine.
by exception? Okay. All right. Then moving on to item 9.1.4. Sorry, I did that one. 9.2, Director of Finance and Community. Here's your spotlight, Meta. 9.2.1 was approved on block. 9.2.2 has been approved on block, which brings us to 9.2.3. A late submission is the Statement of Financial Activity Report for the period ending the 30th of November 2025. And Manager Financial Services will introduce that report.
Thank you, Madam President. The monthly financial report presented today is for the month ending November 25.
Councillor Bailey has left the room.
So revenue from operating activities is on track against budget estimates with a favourable variance of 70,000. Operating expenses are 212,000 greater than year-to-date budget estimates and is mainly due to overspends in employee costs and depreciation. Employee costs includes leave entitlements that have been paid throughout the year as staff members have left. The overspend in depreciation is a result of timing differences between when asset additions are entered into the asset register and the adoption of the budget. So these variances will be reviewed as part of the mid-year budget review. Investing activities includes a reportable variance of 365,000 for the acquisition of infrastructure assets. Page 13 of the financial report includes a breakdown of the infrastructure projects, which majority of the variances are in the construction of roads and are due to timing, and other infrastructure, which includes expenditure for the replacement of the Bailing Up Bowling Green, which is recoverable from insurance, and also a contribution from the bowling club. I wish to also add and provide councillors with an update on the untied surplus from the 24-25 year. So just to add, Councillor Patrick, you had a question in regards to the untied surplus. So the financial report from last financial year reported a total surplus of 1.8 million, which included a prepaid grant of 1.2 million. So this leaves an untied surplus of 600,000. To date, and incorporating the expenditure noted in the minutes of this meeting, 264,000 has been spent, leaving a remaining balance of 351.
And I guess, sorry to intervene, but
CEO.
sorry. And so how will the residual amount of that total 600,000? How will that be treated? Where will that go into reserves, or how will that be treated?
Director
Through the chair, thank you. I would recommend that it's transferred to reserve with the decision which reserve it is to be decided at a later date.
Thank you, Director of Finance. Back to you, Manager of Financial Services.
Nothing further to add. That was it for me.
All right. Any questions, councillors?
Do you want to just make a comment, just for council's information? Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, just for
CEO?
council's information, it's again remiss of me to not formally welcome Mr. Young at his first council meeting. I know we introduced Mr. Young at the agenda briefing, but long awaited filling of a critical position here at council, and certainly Colin's hit the ground running. Something that we've been discussing at executive and management team level for a while is the introduction of management reporting, and within these first couple of weeks, Colin's already come up with a proposed structure for management reports. So that's again not only financial management being owned by the executive and by Meta, but pushing that ownership and that accountability out to each of the managers to not only understand their budgets but also to own those budgets. And then the second enhancement that we're looking at kicking off, which I might have already foreshadowed with councillors, is better tracking of our capital program. Where we've got the capital spreadsheet that we'll start trialling based on end of month for January. So for February, we'll have the figures coming across. And I guess that's an opportunity for, again, ownership of each of those projects to fall back to the individual managers, and for any sort of, I guess, variances to be identified earlier and the red flags to come up. So again, we're sort of taking that incremental step in the maturity of our reporting, both internally at management level, but also more strategically in getting a better hold on our capital program as well. So certainly welcome Mr. Young. It's been a great addition to have you on board.
Okay. Any further questions? All right. Would councillors like to move the recommendation to, let me just pull it up, to receive the Statement of Financial Activity Report for the period ending 30th of November 2025 as attached? Councillor Patrick, Councillor Hall. Would you like to speak to them? No? Councillor Hall? Anyone like to speak against the recommendation? We'll take that as carried. 9.2.5. We have another late item, was it? No. No, that wasn't a late item. The annual report?
Oh, no, that was introduced and foreshadowed, but just recognising at that stage at the agenda briefing we didn't have the audited financial statements, so they've now been included.
All right.
I think you can make some remarks.
And we have a recommendation there that requires an absolute majority. I'd like to introduce the report, and I'll take it from the report. It's my privilege to present the 24-25 annual report for the Shire of Donnybrook Balingup. I'm doing this in moving the report, by the way, in moving the recommendation. Otherwise, I'd be debating before my time. So this is a particularly special occasion as this marks our first full year as a democratically and locally elected council since the end of 2023. It was also during this period that Mr Nick O'Connor, our CEO, commenced with us, and simply reaching these milestones reflects the strength of our community's voice and our shared commitment to shaping a sustainable and inclusive future. Over the past year, Council has strengthened our financial position, guided by the principles outlined in our long-term financial plan. The outcomes we've achieved between July 24 and 25 reflect our strategic approach to revenue generation, service review and asset optimisation. These efforts have culminated in a more resilient financial outlook built on the foundations laid last year and continues to deliver on the priorities outlined in the Council plan. This year also brought unexpected challenges, most notably the Irish Town Road Bridge incident in October 2024. This event had significant impacts across our district, and it's important to acknowledge the extraordinary cooperation and resilience shown by our community. From emergency services and volunteers to Shire staff and residents, the collective response was nothing short of remarkable. And I'm sure that the councillors here and our executive extend our sincere appreciation to all involved in the recovery efforts and thank the community for its patience and support throughout. In addition to our financial and infrastructure priorities, Council has continued to focus on balancing strategic financial planning and supporting the services and initiatives that make our Shire a vibrant and connected place to live. We're guided by the reviews of the long-term financial plan, asset management plan and council plan carried out during the 24-25 period. As we reflect on the year, I would like to acknowledge the contributions of our volunteers, community groups and local leaders. Whether through sport, culture or public safety, your efforts continue to strengthen the social fabric of our towns and hamlets. Volunteering remains the cornerstone of our community spirit. And once again, on behalf of this council and the executives present, we extend our gratitude to the Shire's... On behalf of the councillors here, I would like to extend our gratitude to the Shire's executive team and staff whose professionalism and adaptability have supported Council's transition and ongoing work. Your efforts behind the scenes ensure that our services remain responsive, efficient and community focused. Looking ahead, I encourage everyone to continue to stay connected, reach out with feedback and continue to participate in shaping our future as we continue our financial sustainability journey, improving service excellence and prioritising community wellbeing. Thank you, councillors. Would anyone like to second the recommendation? I spoke ahead of my time. Would anyone like to speak? I'm definitely not debating before I start to speak, but I was very excited. Councillor Patrick would like to second. My apologies. Councillor Patrick, would anyone else like to speak to the report? Okay. Because it's an absolute majority, I'll just put it to vote. All those in favour of the report? Thank you.
That's unanimous.
It's unanimous. Oh dear. Okay, moving on to 9.3, Chief Executive Officer reports. 9.3.1, the sale of Lot 21 Reserve Street, Donnybrook. And councillors, we have an executive recommendation that requires an absolute majority. Would someone like to... Oh, CEO, do you need to introduce?
I was just going to say, councillors, this was one that I did foreshadow via an email, given the time sensitivity of the offer on foot. The matter has come before council more broadly as part of the asset optimisation program. And I'm not sure whether did you want Mrs Clifford to do an introduction before? Yeah.
Thank you, and through the chair. So councillors, this item relates to the proposed disposal of Lot 21 Reserve Street. Sam, if you just want to grab up the map, I emailed it through to Chambers earlier just to make sure it's very clear as to the bit of land that we're speaking about. The land was identified, as Nick mentioned, through the asset optimisation project as having minimal community utility and it being suitable for use of private ownership. And then following Council's resolutions in May and August to commence the consultation and then to commence the sale process, the statutory public notice period was undertaken between the 26th of November to the 10th of December. During that period, we received 2 submissions. The first submission, there was concerns about the potential loss of the footpath and the importance of the walkability and the connectivity there around that road verge. However, the response that we've provided is that a subdivision application was actually lodged to allow for the footpath to be reconstructed within the road reserve. So it will actually head along around where the power pole is and come back around the front, and that there'll be a bit of a truncation on the side corner there to extend it out to the road. So that with the Shire will be doing that. So, and then the submission 2, there was concern about who would bear the cost for removing and relocating the footpath, and that there was a perception of insufficient information disclosed. So the Shire, we can clarify that the purchaser will be removing the existing footpath as it's been outlined in the report, and then the Shire will fund and manage the realignment of the road reserve with an estimated cost of about $20,000, of which we've asked for there to be a budget amendment to allow for that. And staff have also noted that any further consultation relating to sale of land will ensure that we have links to provide easy clarification to the community on the lot and the parcel, so that they can easily click on that and identify that. Yeah, the map to where the parcel of land is. During that submission period, we didn't receive any other further offers. So the decision before Council will be to consider the submissions and formally resolve the disposal of the lot, including the associated budget amendments. So if you support, the next steps will be to accept the offer, create a strategic projects reserve for that funding to go into, and then amend the 25-26 budget to allocate the proceeds and to also cover off the footpath relocation costs and to authorise the CEO to execute the sale.
Thank you. Director of Executive Manager of Corporate. Okay. Would councillors like to move, or are there any questions first? As it is, Councillor Purick.
Just on the relocation of the footpath, are we confident that we will be able to get sufficient width? I note that one of the power poles is off the back of the curb a fair bit.
Director of Operations.
Through the Chair, yeah, we are confident. We'd actually realign it as well, because you'll notice the truncation of that property doesn't allow for the footpath to continue along the similar route. So we would actually make a pedestrian crossing over to the other side of the road and extend the opposite footpath. The power poles are in play, but the clearance is sufficient to meet our date requirements.
Councillor Purick.
And just on the costing, are you confident $20,000 will be sufficient?
Through the Chair, with due respect, it's an estimate, but very, very confident. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, would councillors like to move the recommendation? Councillor Hall and Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I think this is a great decision, a great proposal, to dispose of this land. It's always great when you get some money back into the Shire coffers. It sounds like there's a nice new rateable person coming into our area, and impacts to current residents should be low. So in full support of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lindeman. Nothing more? Would anyone else like to speak for or against? Okay, councillors, we'll put it to vote. Right of reply for Councillor Hall. Okay, we'll put that to vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Okay, moving on to 9.3.2, the extraordinary election. And now this is a late addition. And CEO, do you have any opening remarks?
I'll provide some opening remarks and then hand over to Mrs Clifford to go through the detail. But similarly to the Bungeo matter, councillors, this matter is being brought back to you given that there's been obviously substantial additional information and other dynamics come on that would obviously is material in nature and does require council to reconsider its position on the proposed extraordinary election. So I might just hand over to Mrs Clifford, if that's okay, to take through the detail, councillors.
Thank you, and through the chair. So, councillors, this one revisits the arrangements for the extraordinary election. As you remember, council resolved at the November OCM to conduct an in-person election on Saturday the 28th of March for one vacancy. However, with the second resignation that has occurred, and we've also been provided with some more detailed costing from the WA Electoral Commission, or WAKE, with regards to the cost for in-person versus postal. So we brought it back to council because of the substantial change there. So the matter's been brought back to council for consideration. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that we've had a look at putting the date forward to a Thursday, which will for scheduling for reasons for the purposes of reducing staffing costs, postage and freight compared to a Saturday election. That was some advice from WAKE. So they'll avoid all the weekend surcharges and additional freight runs. Also on that matter, just in voting on who would come on those days, when they are on a Saturday and the previous election period being run on a Saturday, there was 34 replacement packages that were reissued. They were done prior to the day. There was 19 done prior to the day of the election, and on the Saturday we had 15 people come in and reissue packages. So I believe that the Thursday should still be sufficient, and being postal, that it would then give plenty of notice for people to be able to hand that in. Just also wanted to bring to council's attention that it's becoming increasingly difficult to secure staff to work the extra hours on these days. We've asked that WAKE provide the costs for the full funding and the resourcing for the in-person as part of that, due to the fact that just the amount that we can pay under the award isn't great, and that the WAKE can actually actually more resource than they can actually pay under a different award. So that allows for greater income then, and then we'll guarantee that we have staff and it's not reliant on the Shire being able to actually get people to volunteer to put their hand up to do that. So next steps, so if supported to go postal, we'll declare the Commissioner responsible. We'll make it for postal voting. The electoral date will be the Thursday, the 26th of March. The cost will be, as an estimate, at $45,000 from the 24-25 untied surplus. Nominations will open about the 5th of February next year. Nominations will close on the 12th of February, and the Shire will commence communications and advertising in early January to ensure the community awareness and some council engagement.
CEO?
Yeah, so thanks very much, Mrs Clifford. I also just draw council's attention to bottom of page 100 there. Mrs Clifford's pulled together and her team pulled together a nice little comparison against the in-person, which is obviously the council's previous resolution. There's a couple of scenarios contemplated there. In-person, one polling place. So that's again contemplating just having one polling booth here in Donnybrook. However, in the event that there's a need or a desire to take it to 2 polling places, the cost escalates up to around the $75,000 mark. And you can see that the postal option, that's why there's been a change in the recommendation from staff there. And also, I guess it's also worthwhile just having a look at those or reiterating those indicative and historical participation rates as well. So ultimately, it's a matter before council, but now that we've got all the facts, that's why we're bringing it back to council today.
Thank you, CEO. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Lindeman.
How did you know? I just wanted to ask, so this is for 2 people. I just want to do a quick whip around if there was any changes to that and any other councillors decided to leave. Is there an increase in amount or is it now fixed? or as close to fixed as can be, or does it just keep going up for every person that, you know, is not available? Just checking.
Executive Manager.
Through the chair. So if council was to make the decision today, that stands. We've got till the 7th of January to declare with the date that we've got. So if there was anyone else from the 23 period that was to resign, then we've got till that date to add that onto this election. Otherwise, we would then have to call for another extraordinary election.
Yeah, and sorry, do you have any, apologies, but do you have any insight as to, I guess we're sort of dealing with hypotheticals, which I don't sort of potentially like to do, but the question was around if there was another vacancy, would that have an impact on costs moving forward?
Through the chair, the last one, they added about $1,000 onto the postal. So I'd assume that that's probably what it would look like if we were to add another one.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
So the council would have to make a decision by the 7th of January.
Very important date.
So we would have to have a special council meeting, obviously, to do that by then.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? No? Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Hall. And seconder? Councillor Purick. Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam President. As someone who voted for the in-person at our last meeting where this was voted on, I think it's good governance to go where the money is telling us to do this. This is obviously an unbudgeted expense, something we don't want to be doing. However, in light of the new information provided, this is the most common sensed approach to get the best value for our ratepayers for this requirement that we have to do.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Purick.
Yep, I echo those sentiments. The decision we'd previously made was one on saving money. However, being presented with these facts, as much as I would love an in-person election and a democracy sausage, I think, yep, this is the sensible way to move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Purick. Would anyone like to speak? Would anyone like to speak against the motion? No, we'll take that as carried. Thank you.
Look at us here. We're going to have a barbecue at some other stage.
I'm sure we can do a barbecue. So, moving on to item 11, we have no new business of an urgent nature. And then item 12, meeting closed to the public. We are going to deal with matters 12.1 and 12.1.1, Bridge 522 for progress update, and 12.1.2, RFT 014526 for the Donnybrook Recreation Centre change room upgrades. And when we reconvene, we'll be reading out the motions, the resolutions, and then moving to close the meeting. Oh, would someone like to move to close the meeting to the public? Councillor Purick and Councillor Patrick, all in favour? Thank you. Right. Back to read the public reading of resolutions that may be made public. 12.1.1 RFQ 335 for Bridge 5224 emergency repair works update. It was moved that Council notes the changes in the submitted offers for RFQ 335 due to the extent of time it has taken to execute the agreement and for maintenance of Bridge 5224 with the applicable parties. And 2, amends the 25-26 Shire of Donnybrook bailing up budget as follows. And we're looking at a movement between capital, is it? Job code B5224 is moving between current budget funding sources, current budget allocation of 220,1155 through to, we're splitting that, are we?
256.
Yeah, to 256,708. I won't try and put where it's coming from. And then 3, requests the Chief Executive Officer to allocate the required additional own source funding of $12,185, excluding GST, from the Shire's Bridge Works Reserve. And item 4, subject to point 2 being satisfied, award the contract for RFQ 335 Bridge 5224 emergency repair works to Rhythm Civil and Contracting in accordance with their revised submitted offer. And for item 12.1.2, RFT 014526 Donnybrook Recreation and Aquatic Centre change room upgrades. It was resolved that Council 1 approves unbudgeted expenditure of $72,982.24 from the 2024-25 surplus, and 2, authorise the CEO to award the contract for RFT 01 2025-2026 to Oban Group. That brings us to item 13, closure. And I can advise that the next agenda briefing session will be held on the 18th of February 2026 at 3 p.m. in the Shire of Donnybrook Bailing Up Council Chamber. Thank you, everyone.